Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Dani, and today it's time for the part 2 of the 30 books and authors that I want to read after I'm 30. If you missed part 1, I'm going to link that in the cards and in the description, and that one was all about authors that I want to read after I'm 30, and this video is about classics that I haven't read yet that I want to read after I'm 30, and the next one, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that, is 10 other books, more contemporary, more new recent novels that I also want to read. So like before, I have 10 classics here to share with you. I ordered them in the order of the one that I want to read the most to the one that I want to read the least, but these are still the 10 of the ones that I want to read the most in my life. And we have one honorable mention as well in the end of the video. So number 10, the 10th classic novel that I want to read is one that I have already tried to read and I DNF'd, and that's why it's 10th on the list, because I do want to read it, I do want to finish this book, but it was just so hard, and I don't know when I want to get back to it, but it's here. It's definitely going to be read at some point, and that's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Like I said, I do own this book, I have started to read it, and I just couldn't get into it. It was too boring, honestly. It was too slow, nothing was happening. I just couldn't get involved in the story. I didn't get to the point where the excitement would start, I hope. So maybe that was the issue. But I got like a third of the way through, I think, and nothing happened. So I will go back to it at some point. If you don't know what this novel is about, I think it's supposed to be about Dr. Victor Frankenstein, who puts together this monster with parts of different bodies. I never got to that part of the book, so I don't know if that's really what the idea of the book is. But it's definitely one that I want to read at some point. In number 9 is one book that I'm very curious to know more, and it is a very important classic in the world, but it's very big, and that's why I haven't read it yet, and that's why it's number 9th in the list, because I'm intimidated by it, and that's Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. This video should be titled me giving bad synopses for classic books, because all I know about this book is that it's about an orphan boy. I think he steals from people at some point, maybe to eat. Yeah, I don't know, but everyone says it's good, it's a classic, I'm curious about it, so I want to read it. There are some beautiful editions of this book out there. So yeah, that's definitely one that I want to read. And at the same time, like, I haven't been spoiled by these books my whole life. I don't know what the idea is. So I'd kind of rather live it like that instead of looking more for it. I haven't watched any Oliver Twist movies or anything like that. But I don't know. I don't know if the kid grows up in the book or if it's just him as a child throughout the whole book. But yeah, I want to read Oliver Twist, even not knowing a lot about it. Book number 8 in the list is again another one that intimidates me because it's very long and because it's very hyped as a classic, and that's Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. I have a feeling that if I can get past the writing style, because it's probably like old and hard to read, this is a book that I will enjoy, because as far as I know, again, here's my bad synopsis for a classic book. It's about this man who rides maybe a donkey or just a very old and not very good horse. And he thinks he has this awesome stallion, this awesome horse, and he fights this windmill thinking it's a monster. That's all I know about it. I feel like just from this, it's a story that I would enjoy because it's a little bit absurd, and I do like that, but I also have a feeling that, again, it's I don't know, 800 pages, 600 pages. It's a long book for me not knowing the plot, so I don't know if I would be engaged throughout the whole story, but I think it's something that I would enjoy. But if you have watched the first in the series of videos, I did mention that I have an issue with translated books. This is a book that I own, but I own it in Spanish and I don't speak Spanish, so I'm not going to read that one. I bought it because it was a very pretty edition that I bought in Buenos Aires when I was in Argentina, and I wanted to have something from that bookstore. So I bought it there, but I need one in a language that I actually speak. So I don't know if I would read it in Portuguese or if I would read it in English. I don't know how to go into this book, but it is one that I want to read. And if I had all the time in the world to learn all the languages, I would learn Spanish to read this book and others in the original language, because I think it must be so much better, definitely. But if you read it in another language other than the original one, let me know what you thought of the translation and if it worked well, because I would definitely be curious about that. Number 7 is a children's book that I actually own, so I literally have no excuses for not having read this yet. And that's The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I bought this recently, so I don't feel too bad for not having read it yet. But I am really curious. It's, like I said, it's a children's book. Let's see what I know about it. I have watched the movie and I really enjoyed the movie, but I don't remember. I also get it mixed up with The Little Princess. I don't know which one is which story is which. But I could also just read a synopsis. Yeah, the girl loses her parents and she finds a secret garden. And then there's a boy, I think, who is dying in the house. Or is that from A Little Princess? No, A Little Princess, she has her dad. Or maybe he died in the war. I don't know. But there is a special secret garden, like a very beautiful garden in this mansion where she lives after she loses her parents. And in one of the books, there's a sick boy that probably dies at the end. I really don't remember, so don't worry, that's not a spoiler unless it is, and I don't know. But I am curious to read this book. Everyone says it's very beautiful. I think it's very sad at the same time, because she's like, it's a little bit of fantasy, maybe a little bit of fabulism, magical realism. I don't know how far it goes, but I want to read this book. Book number 6 in the list is one that I'm more curious, because everyone have read it in school, and these are not the types of books that we have to read in school in Brazil, because we read Brazilian classics in school. But this is a very important American classic that everyone knows about. There is a very good movie. I haven't watched the movie, but everyone says it's really good, with Leonardo DiCaprio, and that's The Great Gatsby. What I know about this book is it's set in the 20s, and he is very rich. And I don't know, I think maybe it's around the Great Depression or something like that, because it's the 20s. I don't know much about it. I haven't watched the movie. I want to read it. I know it's short, so I should read it like easily. And I don't think it is written in a very complicated way. Like, it's not that old to have like a difficult writing style. But I haven't read it yet, and I'm curious about it, so it's number 6 in my list. The next one is another very short book. If it's not a short story, I don't know, but it's The Picture of Dorian Gray. I especially heard a lot about it. I knew about it, and I think I did watch the movie of this one. But I especially heard a lot about it on BookTube, which is weird because classics are not something that people talk too much about it. The people that I watch, of course, I know there's a lot of channels that read a lot more classics, but I'm curious to read it because I watched the movie and I thought it was really good, but people praise it so much that I'm curious. Now I want to read it. And I've only read one Oscar Wilde before, which is The Countryville Ghost, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, so I think I will enjoy this one as well. But yeah, now the hype is so big for this one that I don't know if I would enjoy it as much as everyone else. But it's definitely one that I'm going to read at some point. Book number 4 in my list is another American classic that everyone has read in school, but we don't read this book in school, and that's To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I think I might know the plot of this book, least of all of them. I think there's a lot of discussion and commentary about racism in the United States, and that's pretty much it. I don't know anything more about it, and I've only heard amazing things about the whole story of this book and the whole discussion and even the writing style, so I think it must not be that hard to read, and I'm really curious to read it, but again, have not read it yet. And third place of the list of books that I want to read after I'm 30. It's a series, and please don't hate me for one, have not put it in first, and second, for not having read it yet. I do think I started, but I never finished for sure. And that's The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This one is one that I could tell you the whole story because I've watched the movies and I love the movies. And I did read The Hobbit, and I did really enjoy it, but I also remember that it took me a whole month to read it, and it's very short because it's a writing style that's not super easy to get through, even though the plot and everything that is happening is so interesting and it's so immersive and engaging. The writing style, it is not really what fantasy writers write nowadays, which is a whole other discussion. But either way, I do want to read the series. I am really curious about it, and this is another one that I want to have like a pretty edition of these books, but I haven't found one yet that I really like or that it's not super expensive. But I know that I'm going to enjoy them. At least I'm going to enjoy the story, even if the writing style is not exactly something that I love because very descriptive. I don't tend to enjoy that so much. But I think I did start the first book at some point, but I never finished the series. So I have to read that after I'm 30. In second place on the list is one that just recently went to the top of my list of classics that I want to read because of the movie and because everyone started reading it right before the movie, and that's Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I haven't watched the movie yet, and I don't know, I think I might watch the movie first and then read the book. I don't have the book, so I'll watch the movie first. But it is a middle grade story or directed to a younger audience, so it probably won't be too hard to get through, even though it's a big book. But a lot of people with very different tastes in books have really loved this story, so it's one that it's really on the top of my list because I just want to know what it's all about. I don't know. Everyone started to reference all the sisters, and I don't know any of them, and I just want to know and get to know all of them. The first one on the list is another children's story, and it's one that is very short. Again, not a lot of excuses for not having read it, but it's another one that I have not watched the TV show because I want to read the book first, and that's Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. What I know about this story, I didn't even talk about Little Women, but I know for Little Women, I think it's about the story set in a war, maybe it's Civil War or World War I. I don't know, that's all I know about it. For Anne of Green Gables, all I know is that she lives in a farm, and I don't think she behaves as adults want or expect her to behave. That's my synopsis for Anne of Green Gables. But I'm so curious to read it. It's a whole series. I don't know if I should read the whole series, and then that's why I don't start the first book, because if I consider the whole series, it's kind of long. I don't know how much the TV show is inspired or how much it adapted from the story, but everyone loves the Netflix show so much, and I don't want to watch it before I read the book. So I have to read the book first. There is a very pretty edition for that one that's not that expensive, which is the one that I want to buy, but I just never got to it. But it's number one, the one classic that I want to read the most at some point in my life, probably, hopefully sooner rather than later. As I mentioned, we have one honorable mention for classics that I want to read, and it's not on the list of 10 because I have read it before and I want to reread it, and it's one that I do own already. When I first read it, I read the ebook, I think, but now I have a very cool copy, and that's Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is one of my favorite books that I've ever read from what I remember, which is not a lot, but I really want to reread it, and I got this super cool copy second-handed for very cheap, and I want to get to it again at some point. Because one thing that I remember about this book, it's that for me, as much as this was adapted for a lot of different media, this is one book that works as a novel only, kind of. So like it was adapted, so they had to change a lot of the feeling that this book gives, But for example, there's a lot of monologues in this book and just characters talking for pages and pages and pages, one scene. And that's something that would never work on a TV show, on a movie, because that would get boring and that would not make sense because things are happening at the same time. Like in the background, they have to deal with that, so they can't just stop for like, I don't know, 30 minutes and give a very long monologue. I guess it might work in theater, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But it works in novel most of all, and I think that none of the adaptations that I've watched give that same feeling that this book gives. And I really liked it in the book. And I do want to reread it, and that's why an honorable mention, because I have read it and I do so recommend it. So that's the 11th book on the list. And next week, you're going to get the last one in the series, which is 10 more books that I want to read after I'm 30. And those are not classics, just more recent releases. That one's going to complete my 30 after 30 series. Let me know if you have read any of these and which ones would be on your top classics that you want to read in life. And remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And thank you so much for joining me.